This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
The Iranians are still asking themselves, how did the Americans do this?
Hunting for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert.
We're doing it with different people. They're smarter. I think they're sharper and far less radical.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Looking back at a historic rescue and looking ahead to what might happen next. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. A drama-filled weekend in the Middle East war, reading like a Tom Clancy novel as U.S. forces scrambled to reach a downed aviator before Iran got to him. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
This was not just barely into Iran. This was deep into Iran. The Iranians are still asking themselves right now, how did the Americans do this?
CIA Director John Ratcliffe.
At the president's direction, we deployed both human assets and exquisite technologies that no other intelligence service in the world possesses to a daunting challenge, comparable to hunting for a single grain of sand in the middle of a desert.
As for what lies ahead now, President Trump gave a mix of threats to begin obliterating Iranian infrastructure targets by tomorrow night, while also hinting negotiations may yet yield a ceasefire.
So many people say, oh, well, why are you doing this way? We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You know, we got regime change. We do. We're dealing with a much different regime than before. We're dealing with different people. They're smarter. I think they're sharper and far less radical.
Both Trump and Iranian leaders today rejected the most recent ceasefire proposal. As long as the Middle East conflict continues, don't expect gas prices to get any cheaper here.
Oil prices have been up and down after Iran rejected the U.S. ceasefire proposal, with U.S. crude futures coming off of their highest settlement in nearly 4 years.
CBS business reporter Jason Brooks. Right now, nationally, gasoline is averaging $4.12 a gallon. It's $4.15 a gallon in PA, $4.07 in New York. Boldly going where no man or woman has gone before. Further from planet Earth than humans have ever been, the Artemis II crew beginning its flyby of the lunar surface today. That flyby expected to last several hours as the crew gets a rare glimpse at what from Earth is the dark side of the moon. A NASA photographer who trained them for this mission says when they're done, their shutter finger's going to be sore.
They're going to take a lot of pictures of the moon, probably over 10,000 in the 3 hours that they're going around it. You want to start at the side that the moon is disappearing first, because if you don't get that side, you're going to miss it because you're going to travel past it.
Earlier, the crew broke Apollo 13's record for the furthest distance traveled from Earth by humans, nearly 250,000 miles. With margins tight, the importance of every congressional election is magnified, so close attention will be paid to Georgia tomorrow. That's where voters are heading to the polls to choose a replacement for the congressional seat vacated by Republican firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. The race in the state's deep red 14th congressional district is a runoff between Democrat Sean Harris, who's a retired Army officer, and Republican Clay Fuller, a former district attorney. They came out on top in a crowded March 10th special election. Democrats called on House Speaker Mike Johnson to order lawmakers to come back to work and vote to fully fund the government.
Republicans need to bring us back into session so we can actually reopen the Department of Homeland Security, stop creating chaos at airports all across the country. There is a bipartisan bill that has been sent over from the Senate, not once, but twice.
New York Democrat Hakeem Jeffrey. Some Republicans are pushing for a reconciliation bill which includes funding for ICE and Border Patrol. President Trump set a deadline of June 1st to send him that bill. Congress, though, not due to return to D.C. until April 13th. The U.S. Supreme Court today tossing out a lower court decision to uphold Steve Bannon's 2022 conviction.
The Trump administration's Justice Department had filed a motion in district court asking for the indictment to be dismissed with prejudice so it can't be refiled, saying the case against Bannon was politically motivated. The Supreme Court's decision here sends the case back to the district court, where a judge can grant the Justice Department's motion to dismiss.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Bannon's a former Trump advisor from his first administration. He served 4 months behind bars and paid a fine after refusing a subpoena from a congressional committee investigating the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. Well, NBC co-host Savannah Guthrie returned to work today, the first time since her 84-year-old mother Nancy was taken from her home a couple of months ago. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The NBC News anchor used her pain to talk about her faith in a pre-recorded message aired on Easter Sunday.
We miss out on fully celebrating resurrection if we do not acknowledge the feelings of loss, pain, and yes, death. It is the darkness that makes this morning's light so magnificent, so blindingly beautiful. It is all the brighter because it is so desperately needed.
Savannah Guthrie says she may have lost her mom, but has not lost Jesus.
I still believe. And so I say with conviction, Happy Easter.
Still to come here on the 5 o'clock report, a recap of our top regional stories and highlights from today's issues in education. Now checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. New York Governor Kathy Hochul launching a significant effort to try to fill in potholes across the Empire State. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish with that.
The governor announced crews will place more than 8,000 tons of asphalt to fill 17,000 potholes across New York, including 68 miles of road in central New York in Ithaca, Camillus, and Syracuse, 97 miles in the Finger Lakes on 490 in Gates, Chili, and Bergen, more than 50 miles in western New York on 190 and 86 in Friendship, 62 miles in the southern tier on Route 268 in Hancock, and spot treatments in Cicero, Brockport, Hamlin, East Corning, Canona, Amherst, Ellicottville, and more. Hochul calling the winter unforgiving. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
It was that, Sarah. Thank you very much. Also, Hochul today talking about the stalled state budget, defending her plans to push back some of her so-called green energy mandates due to fiscal realities.
I'm continuing those investments. Despite the headwinds out of Washington, my challenge now is I want to have more wind built, more solar built. But when those tax incentives that made it viable for a lot of companies to do are eliminated by the federal government, they don't want to do the projects now until this era is over.
The state is running on temporary funding measures right now. That new state budget due April 1st. Flags in Pennsylvania flying at half staff today to honor 2 firefighters killed in the line of duty in Berks County. Fire Chief Jeffrey Buck and Assistant Fire Chief Robert Schick of the Walnut Town Fire Company killed April 4th when their utility vehicle was struck head-on by an alleged drunk driver while they were searching for a missing woman. Lieutenant Ryan Tyson tells WFMZ.
You don't really prepare yourself for an incident like this, let alone 2 at the same time. Their legacy is to do what's best for the residents in our township. I just hope that we can still find guidance through them every day when we're reporting and responding to these incidences.
The fire company put up a Facebook post today asking for prayers for their families. An unsupervised toddler injured by a wolf at a zoo in Hershey, PA.
Here's a reminder to keep your eyes on your little ones always. A spokesperson for Zoo America says a 17-month-old wandered off into a restricted area at Hershey Park in Pennsylvania while the parents were busy on their cell phones. The toddler managed to crawl under a fence around a wolf's habitat and stuck a hand through. Yep, the wolf grabbed it in its mouth. Child suffered only minor injuries. Parents charged with child endangerment.
That's CBS's Deborah Rodriguez. Maybe you've seen this video, too. We're learning more about that small plane that landed on a Pennsylvania highway this weekend. A driver right behind the 1995 Commander 114B single-engine plane recorded the whole thing on I-78 in Lehigh County. Happened on Saturday morning. Emily Rivera watched as that plane dropped out of the sky right in front of her.
As it got closer, I was like, that plane's really close to me.
She tells WGAL it was definitely not your typical Saturday drive.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I was holding my breath the entire time. I was like...
Yeah, who wouldn't be? The pilot, a 65-year-old man from Michigan, was headed to Indiana when he had engine trouble. He tried to make it to a nearby airport when he realized that wasn't going to happen. He landed that plane between cars on Interstate 78. Thankfully, no one hurt. The FAA and state police are looking into it. And while it doesn't get the same attention as Division I March Madness, the Division II men's basketball championship belongs to an area school.
For the first time ever, Gannon, the Golden Knights, have a national championship. Gannon has done it.
Yes, Gannon done it. A game broadcast on CBS as Gannon rolled past Landers out of South Carolina 84-61 to take the men's D2 title. Pace Prosser paced their way with 28 points and 11 rebounds. Up next, highlights from today's noon feature as our Bob Price goes to school with Dr. Ralph Kerr with the Teaching and Learning Institute in Houghton, New York, about the top issues in education.
I want to begin in Pennsylvania. There are so many things happening there. It'll make your head spin. Proposals to bring back shop class. I remember shop class back in the day.
I do too.
Yeah, there's also a push to teach kids hunting and trapping and all that in school. There's also a big effort to teach cursive writing in schools, and they want to get the cell phones out of Pennsylvania classrooms as well. So many things happening in Pennsylvania. Ralph, how many of these proposals do you support, and any in particular that you'd like to address on this program? Feel free to do that.
Well, as I look at these things individually, as we already mentioned, we both took shop class, and that was good. Trapping and firearm safety, if you're into hunting, obviously that's a good thing. Cursive writing, we've talked about that before. I don't see the need of taking time to do that. But overall, I guess my conclusion would be let's deal with the academics and get them improved before we start adding back in hunting and trapping and firearms and cell phones and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I gave you a little homework last week, Ralph. I asked you to study up on the Freedom to Read Act in New York. There are a lot of pro-family groups that aren't very keen on this bill here. You think on the surface, freedom to read, well, who wouldn't support that? What is the Freedom to Read Act, and why are so many Christians opposed to it?
Well, on its surface, as you say, who would be opposed to that? And in fact, if you read the language of the bill that was proposed last year, let me just read one brief section. To curate and develop collections that provide students with access to the widest array of developmentally appropriate materials available in school districts. Now, who could be opposed to that?
Yeah.
In the bill that was on the docket last year, that put the whole responsibility for that decision on the library media specialists and other people in the library. And I just reflected on that and said, in my career, I could think of many librarians in the schools that were just wonderful people, and I would trust their judgment. On the other hand, there were some places they were not such good people, let alone good librarians, and I would not trust their judgment. But what happened here was, to my surprise, actually, the governor vetoed the bill last December. As you know, and the listeners know, I'm not a big fan of Governor Hochul, but on this one, I applaud the fact that she actually vetoed this bill so that it went away last year. Let me just say this too, Bob. Another great reason to run for your local school board, because if this does pass, it's going to be up to the local board to approve a policy that says how you go about challenging a book in the district. So consider running for your local school board. You still have a week or so to file a petition.
Yep, and there's information on your website. We encourage everybody to go to your website. If you have questions about how to begin the process, go online. Ralph's made it very easy for you to do that. And then finally, surprise, surprise, Ralph, the New York State budget is late again, 5 years in a row now. In fact, you mentioned Governor Hochul. She hasn't had an on-time budget since she's been governor. When does this start to become a real problem for school administrators?
It started to become a problem really about a month ago, because districts are required by law, and there's no way around it, to have their budgets developed by the end of April, because there's a vote that the districts have to take on their budget in May.
Yeah.
So they have to do it regardless of not knowing what the state aid is going to be. That's the biggest issue. And then, like some other people in Washington, they all left Albany and won't be back till the 20th of April, which means that the districts are not going to have their budget regardless, and they're going to have to kind of wing it based on what they think they're going to get. I remember distinctly many years ago, I was at a meeting where the state senator at that time, who I hope has gone to heaven, I know she's gone somewhere, I hope it's to heaven, was going on and on about why they didn't pass the budget, and that I was an active superintendent at that time. And I said to her what I just said previously about, well, we have deadlines to meet. And she said, do you want us to just pass a bad budget so that we'll be on time? And I remember distinctly, I said to her, what we'd really like you to do is do your job as is required by law, which is have the budget in place by April 1st.
Yeah, exactly.
Having said that, I can tell you I was not one of her most favorite people.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can hear the entire feature and all of our Family Life original news features at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and FamilyLife.org. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Most people picture the Proverbs 31 woman as a domestic figure, but Scripture actually shows her as a savvy investor. Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. In verse 16, we read, "She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard." Notice the language. She studies the opportunity, makes the purchase, and then goes to work, turning that investment into something productive. The Proverbs 31 woman doesn't just possess resources, she multiplies them. Her work provides for her household and blesses those around her. She's willing to get her hands dirty, turning vision into provision. When guided by wisdom and reverence for God, our resources can be put to work, creating value, serving others, and honoring the Lord. Connect with a certified Kingdom advisor who's been trained to deliver financial advice that aligns with your Christian values by visiting our website, faithfi.com.
Thank you very much. Finally at 5 in Buffalo, the Monday after Easter is also Dingus Day. If you're not familiar, it's a Polish tradition embraced by Polish-American communities around the U.S. Buffalo and Cleveland have two of the largest Dingus Day celebrations, marking the end of Lent. Buffalo's annual Dingus Day parade set to start later this hour. It draws folks from all over, including this New Jersey woman who tells WGRZ,
"This has been on our bucket list, and we are here for Dingus Day for our first time, and we're really excited."
And these folks say it's also a big celebration of Polish culture.
Some people only think of Polish as like pierogies, but like if they can hear the anthem, it's like nicer.
They are showing interest and they learn a lot about Poland, about our traditions, about language, because they just want to know more.
Dingus Day also features a sort of courting ritual with celebrants using squirt guns and pussy willow branches to playfully squirt or tap others from the opposite sex to say, "I like you." And that's the world we live in for Monday, April 6, 2026. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.